Hey there, Seahawks fans. Thank you all so much for clicking on today's video. We're going to dive into some rumors here in just a second. Before we do that, though, can you help us get to 19,000 subscribers? I'm trying to hold off the Dolphins channel, start around the same time as this Seahawks one, all while trying to catch our Chicago Bears channel here at Chat Sports. So if you want to stay in the know on what's going on with the Seahawks, hit that big red button and subscribe today. Seattle Seahawks rumors coming at you guys on Seahawks today. I am Tom Downey, and let's talk Carlos Dunlap and his future with the organization. Now, the report from Corbin Smith of Sports Illustrated is that the Seahawks and Dunlap are currently in ongoing negotiations about a contract extension, and they're hoping to avoid having or being forced to cut Carlos Dunlap before part of his base salary guarantees on March 17th. Dunlap this upcoming year is due $14 million-ish in base salary. Seattle's not going to pay him that because this last year of his deal, there's no way to structure his deal with 1 year left to reduce that cap hit for the upcoming season. An extension, frankly, no matter how much the team would pay him, would actually bring down that number for 2021, and that matters in a reduced cap season. Of course, for Dunlap, once he came over from the Seahawks, or before the Seahawks from the Bengals, he was awesome. Now, he didn't have that many tackles. Not a big deal when you're putting up 6 tackles for loss, 5 sacks, and 14 quarterback hits. Dunlap was a critical part of the defense's improvement in the back half of the season. Now, there have been a lot of reports that Dunlap might try and test free agency, but if he can get a deal done with Seattle, he can bring down his cap hit. That's intriguing. Now, in terms of some other notable deals out there, Dunlap going to make $14 million. Hypothetically, he's probably not going to get that. Could he take a little bit less? He is an older player, but we did see Robert Quinn cash in after a nice bounce-back season with the Dallas Cowboys, cashed in Chicago. We'll talk about J.J. Watt here in a second. Dante Fowler's younger, but got paid quite a bit of money. Maybe Jason Pierre-Paul on the low end. These 5 deals all kind of make potential sense as various connections and various examples that the Seahawks could use as part of a Dunlap contract. Now, just because they're paying a player so much per year, that does not mean that the Seahawks are going to have that level of cap hit. Let's take the J.J. Watt deal, for example. Now, maybe Seattle wants to go a little bit longer than the 2-year, $28 million contract J.J. Watt ended up getting, but look at the way Arizona structured this. From a practical perspective, it's only a 2-year deal. That's as long as J.J. Watt is under contract with the Arizona Cardinals. But Arizona technically made it a 5-year deal. That's why his cap hit in year 1 is so low at under $5 million. Balloons to 16 in 2022, but the cap will have gone up. There are 3 fake years on that. Now, the 2 of them void, and then 2023 also voids, but it leaves a $7.2 million cap charge on it. So a 2-year, $28 million deal never actually approaches $14 million on average in those years. It's spread out over 3 years from a cap hit perspective. Yeah, year 2 is pretty expensive, but year 1's cheap. And that's the year teams are worried about because that's the present, and, you got to try and deal with a lesser cap hit or cap salary in this upcoming season. So for Seattle, if you want to get creative with Dunlap, this is a good way to do it. That makes sense here. Now, I'm not saying they have to go as extreme as Arizona did, where the year 3 cap hit where Watt's not on the team is higher than his year 1 cap hit. But if you're Seattle, you want Dunlap on this team. Because without him, it's Darrell Taylor and Alton Robinson and Rasheem Green, LJ Collier. That's not very good. So if you're Seattle and you can find a way to make it work, bring him in on a reduced year 1 cap hit, still give him some money long term, give him some guarantees. That makes a lot of sense for both sides if the money ends up being right. So do you guys want to extend Carlos Dunlap? Get your votes in for me in the comments section. What do you guys want to do? Type in Y for yes, or you can type in N for no. You want to let him go test the open market. Seahawks draft talk next up here. Zaven Collins. This one's interesting. So the report from Justin Mello of NFL Draft Network says that the Seahawks and Collins either have met or will meet before the draft. And that's a really interesting prospect to be linked to Seattle. Now, Collins at Tulsa coming off a fantastic season, and I think for the most part, close as there can be at this point in the process, he's viewed as a pretty close to consensus top 50 pick, which is interesting because Seattle is not picking top 50. Seattle's picking number 56 overall. That is their first pick in this year's draft. Now, they could acquire another draft pick somehow but to get inside that top 50, or maybe they think Zaven Collins could fall, which is a conversation we'll get to here in a second. This past year for Tulsa, Zaven Collins was everywhere. 54 tackles, 7.5 tackles for loss, 4 sacks, 4 interceptions. He kind of did everything for the Golden Hurricanes. That's intriguing. What I'm curious about is how Seattle views him. Because the way I view Zaven Collins is as a linebacker. Yes, he can blitz. Yes, he can cover. But linebacker is what he did for the most part at Tulsa. And Seattle has already paid Bobby Wagner big-time money. They drafted Jordan Brooks in round 1. They drafted Cody Barton in round 3. Ben Burr-Kirven in round 5. They could hypothetically re-sign KJ Wright. Looking at another premium linebacker honestly doesn't make the most sense to me. Because, yeah, you can find a way to be creative with, and you can make Collins kind of a Sam, almost hybrid edge rusher, but he's not going to be a full-time defensive end for you. Zaven Collins, the way I view him as a prospect, is not as a pure pass rusher. Frankly, I don't love him as much as other people do, but he offers you a bunch of different impact plays. He can be a part-time pass rusher. He could be the guy who occasionally lines up at edge, but he's never going to be a full-time defensive end, especially not in the Seahawks-style defense. Like, he's 260 pounds. You could ask him to play some Leo at times, but that's not going to be his full-time role. He's less of a pass rusher than Bruce Irvin was, for example, coming out of West Virginia all those seasons ago. I've got concerns with Collins about being a good run filler. He's listed at 260. He does not play like it. He plays like he's 230, and that's kind of reflected at times in the passing game. There's value for him on third down. I know what I'm doing with him on passing downs. It's run downs that I go, actually, I don't know what his fit is there. So Seattle having interest at Collins is intriguing to me. Do they think he's going to be on the board for them in the second round? Is the NFL not as high on Collins as draft media is? Is Seattle simply just doing their due diligence on a player they like coming out of Tulsa? I'm not entirely sure. Maybe we'll find out as the NFL draft approaches. But let me know what you guys want to do in the comments section. Let's say, hypothetically, Zaven Collins is there in round 2. Do you guys want him? Type in D for draft, you want to bring him onto the team, or type in P for pass, you want to focus instead on maybe the offensive line for just one area of need. Let's go to Russell Wilson now, the latest on the drama-filled offseason with Seattle and their franchise quarterback. A couple different reports, all from ESPN, by the way. Dan Graziano says the Seahawks have not had internal discussions on trading Russ or potential replacements or any of that kind of stuff. Jeremy Fowler says neither side, both Seattle and Wilson, expects a trade to actually go down. And Diana Rossini says the team is taking calls, not making any calls. Keep that third point in mind there. So where we're at is probably not going to happen. That hasn't stopped the NFL rumor cycle from going crazy, though, right? Clearly, Wilson and the Seahawks are not quite on the same page. Wilson wants to run things one way. The Seahawks, like Pete Carroll, want to do things a different way. I don't think Seattle liked that Wilson went public with so much of this stuff because it's just a hassle for an organization. But a trade in the end is very difficult this offseason. It would result in a $39 million cap charge that Seattle cannot get out of this upcoming season. That's $7 million more than what Russ is already going to make in terms of the cap charge. So, yes, there were 4 teams on Russell Wilson's list: the Bears, the Cowboys, Raiders, and Saints. 2 teams that are in desperate need of a new franchise quarterback. The Bears will do everything they can to get him. I don't think a trade happens this offseason, though. I don't think the timing is right. I think for Russ and Pete Carroll in Seattle, for every party involved, if you're trying to win this upcoming year, makes the most sense to try to do it in Seattle. Now, next offseason might be a different conversation. But let me know in the comments what you guys think the percent chance that Seattle trades Russell Wilson this offseason is. Now, if you want to bet on sports, maybe March Madness, for example, Head over to BetUS, the internet's #1 sportsbook, chatsports.com/bet. Use the promo code you see on screen. That is Seahawks125. When you use that URL, when you use the promo code, you'll get a 125% deposit bonus. If you feel good about Seattle making a run at the NFC West this year, take advantage. They're plus 225. Those odds are not going to get much better from a bettor's perspective. 225 is really good return on some investment there. Arizona, by the way, even after adding J.J. Watt, their odds haven't changed. Seattle still #3 behind the Rams and the Niners. Go get on that deal today, chatsports.com/bet, and don't forget that promo code Seahawks125. Let's go to Kyle Rudolph. Could the Seahawks go out and sign him? Floated by ESPN 710 in Seattle, and I'm intrigued, at least in some capacity, but specifically, as it often is for a team like Seattle where they've already paid some big-time players, has to be at the right cost. Otherwise, might not make the most sense. Now, Rudolph's been cut by Minnesota, so from a comp-picked impact perspective, you're good there. Rudolph is not the player that he once was, and I think his numbers better. And no, make no mistake, Minnesota's offense last year was, let's run the ball with Dalvin Cook and really throw it more to Adam Thielen and Justin Jefferson if we have to throw it. But at this stage in his career, Rudolph is not going to be a game changer at tight end. I don't think he's quite at a Greg Olsen level yet, but their numbers don't look that different. Kind of important, right? If you're going on adding a big-time tight end who's going to cost you something, I think you want something a little bit more explosive than Kyle is. So I like Will Dissly, Kobe Parkinson. Those are the two guys under contract for this upcoming season. Looking for a tight end 3? Sure. I am down with that. If you think that Rudolph could sign for $2, $3, maybe $4 million, okay, that could start to make some sense. But I don't think going after Rudolph and saying, yeah, this is the guy to fix our tight end spot is really in the Seahawks' best interest. So yes, I have interest, but it has to come at the correct cost.